Taking a risk. I've heard this story at least 20 times. In 1887, my great-grandfather, John O'Grady, sailed from Kilkenny, Ireland to Boston, Massachusetts. He was only 12 years old. He left his family of 14 siblings to find opportunity in America. Opportunity that his homeland could not offer. He knew no one in America, nor what it had in store for him. He took a risk. Sound familiar? I'm sure it is to most of you, because almost all Americans have a similar story. Whether their ancestors were from Spain, Mexico, France, Poland, or Japan, or whether they came fleeing religious persecution, famine, or war, they all came hoping for a better life in the land of opportunity. As America is a country of immigrants, most Americans have taken this risk or have at least heard about it from their ancestors. Therefore, America has this plucky nature right down to its very roots. Because America started with a risk, the culture of taking chances and seeking change has continued through its history. From the Pilgrims in 1620 to the tech-savvy generation in the 21st century, Americans have sought change. One way that Americans have expressed this is through literature. Americans express their ideas for the future and dreams for opportunity in their writing. And since Americans have continuously sought change, these works of literature are present in all time periods. Realists, modernists, Age of Reason, and Age of Faith writers discuss the same issues despite expressing them in different ways. Throughout American history, writers of all different time periods have expressed the risks they took and the change they sought for a better tomorrow. The Mayflower, Plymouth Rock, the Puritans. It's 1620, when the Pilgrims left England to sail to new land and seek of religious freedom. In search of religious freedom. These original risk-takers started the American culture of taking a risk in the hope of something better. The Puritans had a dream to escape religious persecution. They took a risk and sailed for new land. They set foot on solid ground in 1620, and being thus arrived in good harbor, brought safe to land, fell to their knees, and blessed the God of heaven, writes William Bradford in his work, History of Plymouth Plantation. Bradford writes further, "They had no friends to welcome them, nor inns to refresh their weather-beaten bodies. It was winter, and they knew the winters of that country to be sharp and violent. Besides, what could they see but a hideous and desolate wilderness, full of beasts and wild men? And what multitudes there might be of them, they knew not." Here, Bradford explains just a few of the perils the settlers faced. They could lose all their possessions and their lives. They left their homeland risking it all, that they might find freedom to practice religion. The Pilgrims exemplified the spirit of risk-taking beautifully, as William Bradford explains in his writing. On July 4th, 1776, the writers of the Declaration of Independence signed their masterpiece and read it before the assembled Congress. As the document declared, they were free from Britain, free to be their own country. Except it wasn't that easy, and not nearly as simple. Writing the Declaration was a huge risk. If America lost the war, all the signers would be executed for treason. They all knew this, but it was well worth the risk. The Declaration reads, "But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them to absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such governments and to provide new guard for their future security." Thomas Jefferson, the writer of the Declaration, explains here that they don't need to create change just because they are treated unfairly, but rather it is their duty to take this risk because they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights which Britain is depriving them of. There is a higher calling in this instance, yet like the Puritans, the rebels take the chance. They create the change necessary for their children and later generations to be free. The Declaration exemplifies the colonists' drive for risk for the future of America. The abolitionists in the 1800s wrote many narratives, articles, and fictional stories arguing for the emancipation of slaves in America. One prominent novel was The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by realist author Mark Twain. Through the innocent protagonist Huck and compassionate runaway slave Jim, Twain indirectly implies about his ideas of equality and freedom for blacks. Even reference to these ideas was risky at the time, as slavery was legal, and helping a runaway slave, could result in arrest or even death. Yet, like Jefferson and the signers of the Declaration of Independence, Twain wrote the novel to create change. He wanted to show how blacks were treated, how they were thought of, and how whites ruled them like objects. This was a risk, but America needed change, and Twain's novel added to the movement that led to the emancipation of slaves. Modernist poet and writer Ezra Pound created an